Using translation when learning a language can be a useful tool, but which is better, translating into or out of a language, and why? And how do you do it effectively? Let's start with translating out of a language into your own. This is by far the easiest of the two tasks, because you know your own language best. So you should be able to find the right words for every translation once you understand what the language you're translating from is saying. You don't have to think of how to say anything in that other language, just your own. But how do you understand what the other language is saying? Well, I believe you should always try to work it out without looking anything up first. Of course, your ability with this will depend on how good your understanding of the language is, so you should probably choose your source text carefully. Something that is at your level. You could, for example, choose a paragraph or two from a book or an article you've already read, so you have some kind of idea before you start. Use cognates to help you and context to make a guess, even if you're not sure. However well you know the text, though, you'll probably have some problems that you can't think your way out of. Put a few question marks where those are and move on. Once you've finished that first pass, read it through and see if anything that came after the places you had problems with gives those things context. Still got problems? Then go to a dictionary or something like Reverso Context and see if you can look up the individual words. Do not use an AI to translate it for you. That's cheating. You'll learn nothing that way. If the individual words don't make sense, look up a whole phrase. Keep refining until you're happy with the result. All the toing and froing will teach you way more than you realise at the time, because you're working it out, and that's far easier to concentrate on than trying to learn vocabulary. The harder it is to work out, the more likely you'll remember some of those words you didn't know, or expressions you couldn't quite work out. You're making a strong connection between the words in both languages. Translating into a language is another ballgame entirely. It's much the same as trying to speak in a language, except you don't have someone standing there waiting for the words to come out. Let's say that you choose a paragraph from a book or an article in the same way so that it's comparable. The likelihood is that you're going to stare at that page for ages. Translating into a language is really difficult, and when you first start doing it, you'll probably find that none of the words come to you easily. You might have to look up even the simplest of things because your mind goes blank. It will go blank. I can almost guarantee it. For this reason, I would suggest that you don't translate in this direction until you have done a lot of reading of texts by native speakers of the language, so you have the best chance of your grasp of vocabulary being good enough to even make an attempt. Follow the same process. Do as much as you can without looking things up, then start with individual words, and finally complete expressions. Except that when you translate into a language, even your best attempt is probably going to sound clunky to a native speaker. The words might be correct, but that's not how they'd really say it, because there's a convenient expression you don't know, or they have a different verb for a particular action that you don't yet know.
Scomparire is to disappear in a more permanent kind of way. Sparire is something much less permanent.
That sounds so much better. Languages are like that. But that doesn't mean that this isn't something you should try. And there are ways of checking text and finding out what the other options are. Google Translate can help, but doesn't give you context. A service like Reverso Context, there are others, but this is the one I use, can give you a whole load of sentences where something is used that you can peruse and try to understand where you might be going wrong. Yes, this can still steer you in the wrong direction sometimes. The thing is, though, even if you give the text to a native speaker to look over, two different people might give you different corrections and pick up on different things that don't sound right to them. Because language isn't cut and dried. Let's think back to that first translation, the one you did into your language. Another speaker of your language would likely not translate the text exactly how you have done. But both translations might be just as good. It's all an experiment. That's the fun of it.